This week, we're going to put some life into your character. The close-up, shoulders-up shot that you designed last week, now we're going to animate a facial expression change, and we're going to simulate a walk by moving the shoulders and the head. So there's some basics that I want you to demonstrate. I want you to do the expression change. I want you to move the eyes and the mouth at the very least. I also want you to move the shoulders and head to simulate that walk. And I'll show you how to do those things. But everyone's character is going to look different. Everyone's character is going to animate slightly different. But to do all this, we need to learn how to rig our After Effects layers properly and then animate the right layers to create that effect. So there's some basics I want you to do, but I know that everyone's is going to look different, and that's a good thing. So have fun, enjoy, and let's get to it. So this is my finished product. There's a few things that I want you to demonstrate. I realize that everyone's character is going to look different, and so therefore they're going to move a bit differently too. But here are some basics that I want you to demonstrate. 1, with the facial expression, I want you to change the eyes and the mouth, at the very least. You can change other things, but make sure that you change those two facial features, eyes and mouth. The second, when we simulate the walk, I want you to demonstrate 3 things. The first to simulate the walk is the up and down. So the whole body should move up and down. The second thing is the shoulders should sway. So you're using the Y rotation on the shoulders to sway the shoulders back and forth. And the third thing on the walk is that slight head movement. So I'm using the Z axis just to move that head slightly one side to the other as he walks. So keep those things in mind. Everyone's animation is going to look slightly different because everyone's character is different. But I do want you to demonstrate those things. The first step in rigging and animating your character from the shoulders up is to import the Illustrator file. So I'm going to go over to File, Import File, or Command-I. And I'm going to select my file, and down here, a couple important things. I'm going to make sure that Composition, Retain Layer Sizes is selected, not footage. And I'm going to make sure that the Create Composition box is selected and the Sequence box is unselected. So take a good look at this because this is an important step. Import as composition, retain layer sizes, and create composition. I'll click Open. And you can see here that I've got a composition created, which is great, and I've got a folder here of all the layers. So it's all there in case I need it. I'm going to double click. So I've got all of my Illustrator layers now into After Effects, which is great. The next thing to do is to go up to Composition and check your composition settings because you want to make sure everything is as you want it. I do want 1920 by 1080 pixel dimensions for my frame. Square pixels is good. And I've got my frame rate set at a more cinematic frame rate, which is 24 frames a second. I'm going to change the duration to 10 seconds. Press OK. And you can change that anytime by going to Composition Settings here, or Command K. And you get that window. So I've got my full 10 seconds. Maybe at halfway, at 5 seconds, a change takes place. But we're going to prepare a few of these layers to change. So the first thing we talked about is those overlaps and the mats, right? So let's zoom in on the eyes here for a second. I'm going to make both the left socket, and depending how you drew your eyes, this is going to change. But I drew my eyes as a socket and an eye, so I want to mat those out. If you just drew a line for the eyes, then you don't have to do this step. But if you've got something you want to mat out, then this is how you would do it. So I'm going to take the right and left socket. I'm going to make them shapes because I'm going to actually change the path of them in After Effects. So I'm going to select them both, I'm going to control click or right click on both those layers, go to create, and create shapes from vector layer. So I'm going to right click on both those layers. I'm going to select create and create shapes from vector layer. So now what happens is that it's still here, right and left socket are still there, but I've got an outlines here. So unlike this layer, if I look at this, I just got a transform menu on here. I can't really do much with that socket layer. But when I have it changed to an outline layer, I have a contents menu and I have a group, which is this path. So now, at 5 seconds, I could change the path of each one of these, right? So if I just make a little keyframe on each one and press U to see just that, you can see now that I have a path line that I can actually shift around. So now it's a shape. So let me show you the difference between a shape layer and an Illustrator, and why we'd want to keep most of these as Illustrator if you can. Let's go back to Illustrator. I'm going to go and open my Illustrator file. And I'm going to take my hair. I'm going to do the most obvious thing here. I'm going to take my hair layer and maybe take the top of it and make it black. Okay, so I've got this really strange looking thing here. If I press save here and I go back to this, suddenly you can see my hair turn black. So the power of it, or I'll make it red so you can actually see the background, or I'll just take this off here. So you can see that my hair turned black. Now that's the power. You can go back and forth and make changes depending on what you are doing. And that's going to come in really handy when we're rigging, because you'll want to make changes on your shapes based on what's happening when you move objects around. So keeping that flexibility is super important. But if there's anything you want to actually change the shape of in motion in After Effects, you're going to have to make a shape layer out of it, or create a vector shape out of it. Create a shape. If there's anything you want to animate in real time in After Effects, you're going to have to create a shape layer out of that vector. So that's why you would change. So let's go back here. I don't think I want that strip of black hair on me, so I'm going to just take that off and save. Press Command S and save. So anything you save in this, right, you have to press Command S or save to have those changes take place in After Effects. So there it goes back again. Very good. So back to our demonstration here with the eyes. I'm going to take both sockets, because the sockets are the things that are going to change shape as I change expression, right? I'm going to right click or control click on both of them, go to create, and create shapes from vector layer. So create shapes from vector layer. That will create 2 layers. Now you still have your vector layer here, which is the right and left socket, but I'm going to select those 2, and I'm going to hit this little shy button here next to the layer, and that'll just remove them from view. It doesn't remove them at all, but it removes them from view. So my After Effects layer menu looks a little easier to look at, because we're going to build up a lot of layers as we go here. So I've shied them. I've pressed this little shy button up here. Hides all layers from which shy button is set. And I'm going to matte this out. So one thing I'm going to do here is the right eye and left eye. I'm going to click on this little collapse. So collapse transformations for vector layer continuously rasterize. I'm going to click on that little starburst for each of these as well. So now that they'll be treated as vectors in here. So the problem with raster images is when you actually zoom in on them, they start to look really pixelated. In this case, they won't. And they also act like shapes. And so it applies my matte after my transformations. So important little distinction here. So I'm going to go to the left eye, right? And I'm going to go over to effects and presets, and I'm going to type in set matte, right, or M-A-T, and there it is. So that's what I want to apply onto the left eye, so the eyeball, okay? I'm just going to drag it over into this left eye. And right now it does nothing because I have to change this little set matte, take matte layer from, right? I'm going to take the left eye socket outlines. And so now, look at that. So now I've got this little cutout here of where the top hits. And so let's just move this with position. You can see it's contained within that eye socket. Let's do the same thing with the other one. Take the right eye, and now whenever you apply an effect, the last effect is under this little effect menu. It's the last effect you applied, which is great. So I'll apply that here to the right eye. And the right eye goes to the right socket outlines. Again, good. So let's just hit position, make sure everything is working. Yes, it is. It's being hidden there by that eye socket. Let's do the same thing with the mouth. So I'm going to click and drag down here and just get my mouth working. And the mouth is the shape that's going to change depending on my expression. So control click or right click on the mouth, create shapes from vector layer. And I'm going to hide by just pressing shy on the layer, on the vector layer. So now I just have the outlines visible. And if I press this, right, I will see all the things that I shied. So they don't go away, they just are hidden from view. And if your visibility is on them, right, you will see them as well. You just won't see them in the timeline. But it will be visible on your composition screen. In mouth outlines, I'm going to make sure that starburst is clicked. I'm going to make sure that this starburst is clicked as well, so that it treats them as a vector layer. I'm going to click on the teeth, apply my set matte, and make sure that the mouth outlines now are the thing that, yes, there it is. So here's where my animation is going to make a difference, right? So if I go into here, right, here's the difference between a shape layer. I get a path. So if I click on my path line and say at the 5 in half a second, I want to change that shape. Let's do that. So if I click on my arrow tool and then shift select one point, you can see now, look at this. This is the animation that I'm getting. So I can now change my expressions, right, over that period of time pretty easily, right? Now I'm going from kind of angry, right, maybe in a full second. He goes there, so here we are. And then we do a little pause maybe. This is going to look different for everybody, but depending on what expression you want. So I've just created a little pause with those 2 keyframes there. And then maybe another half second, which is 12 frames in this instance. I'm going to make him happy. So let's do that. I'm going to click on my arrow tool. I'm going to shift select the corner of one of the points. And let's bring those up, right? Shift select, so you just select the one. So if I just go back to my first keyframe, let's just preview this. Now I'm going to go back to the first keyframe with the arrow tool here, press B for a beginning, then click to the end keyframe, N to put the work area at the end, and press spacebar. Let me give it a full second here on either end, so we're kind of seeing. Good. All right, let's do the same thing with the eyes, right? I do think eyes and mouth are the most important, right? So the eye sockets now are going to change as well. And they're going to be linked, right? We don't want these things to change separately, because then, if my eyes change asymmetrically, that's going to look very strange. So let's make sure we're doing the same thing to both. Go back to this first keyframe at 5 seconds, okay? I'm going to go to the path of each one and click on the stopwatch. Okay, and then press U just to see that line, to clean up my view here. With so many layers, customizing your view so you're not looking at too much information is an important part. All right, and now I'm going to go to the half-second mark, which is 12 frames in. And there is that little kind of adjustment, right? So let's do this. I'm going to create a little... So what I'm going to do is change that top one, right, to be more flat, right? And I'm going to put a guideline, so I'm going to click and drag out from the ruler, just so I can get a guideline here, so I can snap to it. So let's do the left one first. Now I've arranged this so it's his left, not my left. So if I clicked on it and you're wondering why left goes on the right side, it's actually from his POV, so looking at it this way. So that's his left eye, not me looking at the left side of the frame. All right, I'm going to shift select. So arrow tool selected, shift select that one corner. Whoops, let's make sure we're on the right path here. So shift select the corner and just put this down, and it's going to snap to, should snap to this line. Now he still looks a little pissed off. So let's see what we can do with the other one. Let's just do the same thing to the other one. So this is where he's in his mid, thinking about being happy, maybe not quite happy yet. All right. I think we need to actually open the eye a bit more. So we'll do that in the next. So let's jump ahead to, where were we? Ah, yes, 6. So go forward one more and select 2 paths there. And then at 6:12, right? That was the last one. I think it's 6:12, but let's make sure. Yes, jump ahead. Let's make 2 more keyframes on each one and open up that eye a little bit. So now just take this and shift select. So make sure you're on the path and shift select 1 and 2. And these are going to overlap with those eyebrows, but here's the good thing. All right. So now his eye is open. Those eyebrows really make a difference. I'll make another guide here just so I can get that snap to it. So and we can change this if we need to, but I think this is a good start. And again, it's going to depend on what you decided to do, right? So now he looks really, like his eyes are wide open, like he's frightened, or he's really like going to get into a fight with somebody. But I think the eyebrows are throwing this off a lot. So that's the next thing I'm going to change. So if you've made pronounced eyebrows, those are very expressive elements. All right, so now let's just preview that. All right, that's pretty good. A little robotic, but we can always adjust that. But I think that's, again, a good way to change the expression, right? All right, so let's deal with those eyebrows, because, man, those are things that we need to change. To have a full change from angry to happy, right? So I'm going to select both of those, and I'm going to control click or right click on them, create, you got it, shapes from vector layer. Now in that same period, I'm going to go back to my first keyframe. I'll shy these 2. So once you have it down, it is kind of repetitive in the sense that we're doing the same things. We're just adjusting these little facial features. So now let's go into the path of each. Select the path line of each one. And then press U so I can just see that. Now, we'll jump to the next one, which is where that midpoint changes, right? So let's give him an expression that's not quite so angry, but maybe not in between happy and angry, right? So I'm going to go here and click on my path. Let's see if I can take this one and kind of bring it. Okay. That seems like a good midpoint, right? Let's try to match that. So shift select, just to select the 1 point, kind of bring it down to, now you can see that handle kind of, so I'm just going to try, I mean, it doesn't have to be exact, but I want to make sure that I'm not adding too much. So there's another point here just to bring it up. Yeah. Okay. Maybe just reduce the, all right, so we're pretty zoomed in. I think that's going to be roughly good. And then let's jump ahead here to the next keyframe. I'm using my arrow tool on the left eye socket to just jump exactly to the point that I need. So there's my repeat keyframe, right? So I'm going to just pause it there, and then my final happiness. So this is, I think, where the path, right? I'm going to take those points. Let's do this one first. So shift select. Let's bring this up a little bit and kind of curve it up, right? Now let's see if we can. Now, what I think I need here actually is another, I can do this, I can move this keyframe over, but what I'm going to do here is add a vertex on here so I can curve it up and add another one there. Now, be careful with this. Don't remove any points, right? Because you'll see that you might end up, if you remove points, then they actually go away forever. If you add them, they're there for the whole animation. They just don't move, right? So let's just see what we can do here. Let's curve this up a little bit here. So now we've got, yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's see. Yeah. All right, so let's try to match the other one now. There you go. I've got a facial expression change here. Look at that. Now we've rigged this facial expression. Now let's rig together the body. And rigging is essentially just setting the anchor points and the layer type and connecting the body parts. So let's do this. I don't need these layers. Let's just take them out. I don't need my background layer either. Shoulders, head shape, and nose. So to rig this, I'm going to create connections between all the body parts. So the facial features, right? The eyes, it wouldn't be good if my eyes went, one way than the other, right? So I'm going to connect the right eye to the left eye, right? So just parenting it there in the menu. So now if I take my position of my left eye, let's zoom in. You can see both eyes are controlled by the one. All right. And the head shape should connect, right? The head shape includes the neck into the shoulders. So let's do that. So connect it to the shoulders. And then all of these features should connect to the head shape, right? So the nose and the mouth and the eyes, right? So let's do that. So let's take the hair and the left eye. Skip the right eye because it's already connected to the left eye, right? These outlines here, yes. The teeth, the mouth outlines, the nose goes to the head shape. I'm just going to take my pick whip tool and just connect it to the head shape. So now if you were to move that head shape, right, everything moves with it, which is important. So that's basically rigging, right? And we can take the head shape here. Let's take our pan behind tool. Let's take that pan behind tool and bring it down to the neck. So now if you rotate things, you're kind of getting a more realistic, right? Now, the neck needs to have a little more room, right? So that neck area, this is where having the shoulders and neck need to have a little bit more space underneath that. So let's go back to our Illustrator file. Let's select our shoulders in the path here. And my individual selection tool, let's actually take this point and move it. So all I need is like overlap. So there's that, and I'll press save. Now it moved a little bit, so let's just alter that a tiny bit. I'm going to take the head shape here with position. Now that it's rigged, just move it down a little bit onto the neck. All right, so that looks a little better. And let's go to rotation and see what happens. It's a little better. Still not perfect, but it gives you, you're not going to have this go too far to the left or the right, but you just want enough overlap that you can, I can bring that anchor point up a little bit. Maybe bring it to the chin. And then my position can go down a little bit more. There we go. So let's hit rotation again, see how that works. And it's going to be visually based on how you set up your session. Way better. So now I've got a rig here for my animation.